Hey everybody, I'm Jonathan, and I'm a Mickaboo volunteer. In fact, all the people presenting today are Mickaboo volunteers. Mickaboo is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of people about and the rescue and adoption of companion birds. We're all volunteers. We are a virtual organization with no paid staff. And I'll put in a plug here. We rely 100% on donations to be able to serve the birds. We take in over 200 birds every year, and they're given care, homes, medical care when need be, and either fostered or adopted. We also have more than 400 birds currently in foster homes, and the costs are staggering, averaging $40,000 to $50,000 for veterinary bills every month. That wasn't like a misspeak or a misprint. That's $40,000 to $50,000 every month for essential vet care. And the costs are so high because often newly rescued birds require pretty comprehensive medical attention after either being neglected for a long time, failing health, accidents that happen from escape, or injury from wild animals or other pets. So if you're able to help, please consider donating. And if you're looking to adopt a forever bird friend, you're in the right place. So there's the end of the information. Let's talk about the adoption and foster process. Since we're an all-volunteer organization, and because we want to be really careful about the well-being of birds and the families that they go to, the process can take a while. It's not like, hey, go to the shelter, pick out a dog, go home with the dog. It takes several weeks to get through the process because it's multi-stage, and we want to ensure that we get to know you and your situation, review what we learn, take time to help you make an educated decision about what kind of bird is right for you. And this can take 8 to 10 weeks or sometimes longer for a bigger bird. Please, please be patient because the results are really worth it. And if you feel like you haven't heard from us, do drop us a line. Sometimes things accidentally drop and the reminders are welcome and helpful. So the adoption process begins with our basic bird class because parrots are not simple beings to care for and they require a lot from their human companions. And in the class, we cover parrot behavior, health and well-being, feeding, care, and other topics to ensure that our birds will be able to thrive with you in their new homes. After taking the class, the next step is to fill out an application. Once your application is filled out, you'll be contacted and moved to our next step, the phone screen. And this is an opportunity for us to better understand you and your situation and what you're looking for, as well as your understanding of birds and bird care. And that's why it comes after the class, as well as a great chance for you to have the ear of a Mickaboo volunteer and ask questions directly. After your phone screen comes a home visit. And home visits are now performed both virtually and in person. And while you're allowed to state a preference, we can't guarantee your choice just because we have a limited pool of home visit volunteers. And whether it's in person or online, the home visit itself is the same. It's not a white glove test. It's a way for us to help you identify potential dangers that you might have in your home, how to mitigate them, find a good place for the cage, get to meet anyone who will be caring for the birds, these sorts of things. And we'll want to see any birds that you currently have, any cages, and the parts of the house where the bird will be. Currently, this is the part of the process that takes the longest, so you can expect to wait up to 6 weeks in some cases before your home visit. Once your home visit is completed, everything's sent off to the approval boards for review. And when you've been approved, you'll be put in contact with the species coordinator for your first choice of species, who can work with you to find a bird or birds who are a good match for you. You'll be able to talk with the foster parent for the bird, meet the bird over Zoom, potentially meet the bird in person before making a decision. In light of the pandemic, the specific arrangements will vary depending on what you and the foster home are comfortable with. So today we'll be meeting some of our foster birds. And these are birds who are seeking their forever home. So we are going to start with a pair of conures, Sebastian and Jellybean. We'll meet a different sort of conure, Arcus. And then we'll move from the continent of South America, where conures live, to the continent of Australia to meet Peaches and Daisy, who are two cockatoos, Abraham, Charlie, Marty, and Skippy, the cockatiels, and Maclin and Maddie, who are parrots or budgies or budgerigars. And so with that, before we move into meeting Sebastian and Jellybean, I want to remind you that if you have any questions about these birds, please ask them in chat so that we can address them during the interview. Okay, hey Cindy.
Hello.
I see Sebastian and Jellybean on the far side of their house.
On the left. Yeah.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
It's hard to see that we can see the green, but the red markings on their head are kind of hidden. They're being very coy. They look very similar. Are they the same species of jellybean? Are they the same species of jellybean? Wow. No, are they the same species of conure?
They are not. So Sebastian is a mitered. They're very close, but a little bit different. Sebastian's a mitered and Jellybean is a cherryhead.
So despite the fact that they're different species, they're pretty similar and they seem to get along very well. Tell us who's who.
Okay, so Sebastian is the one who just got back on the perch there. He is the mitered. He was a pet, and he came to Mickaboo because his owner abandoned him when he could no longer take care of him. He just left him one day when he had a routine medical appointment, so that's when he came to Mickaboo. And then Jellybean is the one who's still hanging on there, and he is a cherryhead. He is actually, we believe, he's one of the. He was rescued at one point. We believe he was one of the Telegraph Hill conures. And so this story is pretty unique because they both met at the vets and they had a cage next to each other. And over time, they became buddies. And then they introduced them to the same cage and they bonded. So they became really best friends, both being at the vet.
So they're what we would call a bonded pair then, which means that they have a strong relationship. And we would want to adopt them out to the same home so that they can maintain that relationship. Let's start with some conure basics. What do these guys eat? What's their basic diet and what are some favorites?
Okay, so these guys eat the Harrison's large pepper pellets, and they also eat the Lefever's Avy cakes and fruits and vegetables. They're actually really good, and they're not that picky about, they're really good about eating their pellets and they like all kinds of different fruits and vegetables, green beans and blueberries and apple pieces and carrots and corn. And so they're really great in terms of already being on a really good diet.
That's awesome. You mentioned, so they're eating well and they like different types of fruits and veggies. You mentioned that they met at the vet. Do either of them have a medical condition that would require special care?
No. So, no, they're actually very healthy. They've not been to the vet in quite a while. They're very healthy. And the only thing is that Sebastian, it doesn't require any attention, but the only thing to be noted is he's missing the tips of some of his toes, and one of his feet is a little bit lame. But as you can see, he gets along in a normal cage and normal perches just fine. Every so often, once in a blue moon, he'll try to do something and he'll fall. But he's great. He just like I said, he's missing, but he doesn't need any ongoing care. Neither one of them needs any medication or any kind of ongoing care.
That's great. So I'm guessing that they were at the vet when they both were brought in. One having been neglected for a while, and the other being required. Then they needed care. Then they're okay now. So
right, and they were being boarded at the vet. They were perfectly healthy, but they needed a foster home, and that's how they ended up with me.
Ah, wonderful. And how are they with people? How do they do? Do they step up? Do they like to interact with people? Do they prefer to be sort of ambient birds in the background?
So Jellybean is not tame. He'll come. They'll both come out of their cages, but he likes to kind of hang on the periphery, so he will not step up. He's a little bit scared still of people. Sebastian he likes to fly over and sit on you, but you have to just be a little careful because he likes to nip. So you have to just. I usually will just put a towel on me, and he'll come and he'll sit on me on the towel, and then he'll preen. And wherever he goes, when he goes out, Jellybean comes out, and then when he goes back in the cage, I'll take a towel and he'll go on my arm, and I'll just put him back in the cage, and then Jellybean will go in the cage after him usually as well.
Nice. So tell us a little about what makes each one unique. You said, Sebastian's a little shyer.
Jellybean's a little shyer. So
Jellybean,
right, because Jellybean was the wild Telegraph Hill bird. And Sebastian,
right now,
again,
which one is
like
Jellybean? Sorry, right, just so that we
Jellybean.
can track.
Yeah, Jellybean is the he's the cherry head who's on the corner there, and then Sebastian is the one that's on the door who's missing the toes. Got it.
And you can sort of see that. Yeah. Okay. So I'm sorry, we were saying, a little bit.
Yeah.
About
they're a really great. I mean, they're just really fun to have around. So they actually like a lot of ambient attention. They get a little time out now and then in one room. One of the things they like to do, I mean, they're just so cute together, and they'll preen each other and they'll play with each other. And as you can see, that you might be able to see, they like that toy with the bells, and they like their wood toys. And one of the things they really love is when I wheel the cage outside on the porch during the sunny days, and they love to just go in their water bowl, and just get both sopping wet. Like I'll pour water in a few times, because one will go in and splash, and the other one will go in and splash, and they'll just end up both sopping wet, and they just love it. And then they'll just sit there and kind of preen each other, and they just have the best time. And they're really pretty happy birds. And they like a lot more. They like the ambient attention so they don't need a lot of like one-on-one attention really, because they have each other, and they really they're just a really happy pair.
So you use the term ambient attention, and I just want to share with our readers, we talk about different types of attention that birds need. And ambient attention is just sort of, they like being in the same space with you, but aren't needing you to be specifically over and paying attention directly to them. And these guys are therefore low intensity in terms of how much one-on-one interaction they need, and they're really happy that way. They're sharing a cage. About how big is their cage? What are their living arrangements? What do they need as far as that?
Yeah, so the living area of their space is 32 inches wide, 22 inches deep, and 40 inches high.
Cool. That's pretty specific. So that's a good sized house, but they're not.
Yeah, with about a 1 inch bar spacing on the cage. Yeah, because they spend a good amount of time in the cage. I mean, they do get a little bit of time outside, and so they need a nice cage, and they'll flap like. They'll go on the corner and just flap their wings and stuff inside their cage, and so they really need a good sized cage for roaming around in.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned bar spacing. Again, for our viewers, bar spacing is really important for the safety of the birds, because if the bar spacing is too big and they can get a head through the bars, they can get stuck or think that they're stuck and really badly injure themselves. Thank you for bringing that up, Cindy. So because of the biting and shyness, I'm guessing that they probably wouldn't do real well in a home with young children. Would you tend to?
Oh no, I would not recommend. Yeah, I would not recommend children.
And the other question is, we could hear them a little bit, and conures have the rep for being kind of loud. How loud are they, and during what parts of the day do they get loud, if they do?
Okay. Yeah, so they actually, yes, they can get very loud, as you may know. If you do hear any of the wild ones in San Francisco, their sound does travel. So I definitely do not recommend them as an apartment bird. However, they are not loud at all. They have their times, like maybe in the mornings and in the afternoon. And if they get excited, like, you know, if somebody's out blowing the yard or something, you know, they'll crank it, you know, they'll start shrieking a bit. But most of the time they're pretty quiet. And then at night, they're not loud at all. So when they go to bed, they're quiet.
Awesome. Awesome. So in our last few minutes, what else would you like to share with potential adopters about life with Sebastian and Jellybean?
Well, I would say one thing is that they, in terms of taking care of them, they have one bowl, one water bowl and 2 food bowls, and they have the food bowls are equal food in both bowls. And that's just so, otherwise they'll fight over the food. But if you give them each their own bowl, that they're great. And as I mentioned, you know, even though Sebastian has some issues with his feet, he's perfectly good in a normal cage, so that's great. They're not clipped right now, and as I mentioned, they, you know, they're very, you know, they're just fun to be around. They're great energy, and they're just a, you know, a lovely pair of birds. Oh, the other thing I should probably mention is their age. Sebastian's about 20, Jellybean's about 10, and they get to be, miters get to be about 30, and cherry heads get to be about 25.
Got it. So they have quite a few good years ahead of them. Cindy, thank you so much for sharing these 2 with us. And I think we'll be talking soon about another pair of birds. Wonderful. Thank you.
Great.
We're going to go, we are now here with a different sort of conure. This is Arcus. Hi, Julie.
Hi, Jonathan.
Arcus looks really great with his blue background. His feathers are showing up so nice and bright. And
so pretty, yes. He has so many different colors to him.
For our viewers, he's a much smaller conure than the mitered and cherry head. He's probably about half their weight. I want to remind people that they can ask questions about Arcus in the Q&A, and we'll either get to it in, you know, out loud in voice, or one of our volunteers will answer it right there. So he's a green cheek conure, right?
Yes, he is.
So tell us a little bit about what it's like to live with him and some of his, you know, what makes Arcus Arcus.
So I fostered him about 3 months ago or so, and he's becoming kind of a class clown personality. In the last month or so, I'm seeing his personality kind of shine through. So he usually sleeps from about 8:30 at night to 8:30 in the morning. And if about 9 o'clock or 9:30, if he hasn't seen one of his humans, he will start calling out. And as long as you peep out and say, hey, I'm here, or, you know, come and sit outside with him, or come sit in the living room with him, then he's good. During the day, he likes to, he just started playing with his toy, which you can see over there on the right. He likes to grab it with his foot and then bite on it a little bit. He also absolutely loves his mirror, and loves making love to the bird in the mirror, but luckily it hasn't come to an obsession yet, which we watch out for. And, you know, throughout the day, he just is very curious and likes to look out the window and watch around and different things that are going on.
That sounds really cool. He looks like a very, you know, attentive bird. He's certainly very interested in what we're doing right now. Does Arcus talk?
Not completely yet. However, just the other day, I really believe that I heard a definite hello out of him. So multiple times throughout the day, I've been trying to get him to say hello, just repeating it over and over.
Oh, nice. So you've had him for about 3 months. Do you have any idea how old he is?
We think he's probably about 11 years old. We believe that his surrender got him when he was approximately 5, and they had him for about 6 years.
Got it. So he'd been in one home for a long time. It's really, you had mentioned about how his personality is starting to come out. And it's really important to, I think, to make the point that, you know, birds form very strong and lasting bonds. And when they are moved to a new home, you know, that it takes them a while to really come out of their shell, so to speak, and feel safe, you know, and we start to see more and more of who they are, really even months and years. Appreciate you bringing that up. Hey, how's his health?
As far as we know, he is completely healthy. Hasn't had any issues.
And right now he's in his cage. Does he come out, and how does he interact with people?
So he does come out. He is slightly flighted, so I've begun letting him out of his cage, and he'll go ahead. He likes to sit up on the top and crawl up and down it. Sometimes he'll do kind of a small circle flight around the room and then come back to the top of his cage. And his interactions with people, it's actually pretty hilarious, because whenever you're talking to him, he wants to be right there with you. So he'll crawl up to the highest point of his cage that he can to try and be on eye level. And it's just like you're having a one-on-one conversation and he's completely listening.
Yeah, he looked like he really likes to pay attention to what's going on. He sort of vanished from sight for a moment. Maybe a treat would lure him back up to that. Oh, there he is, kind of
Over here.
fluttering around. Hey, Arcus, there you are. He sounds like a really mellow guy. Do you think that he would be a good bird for new parrot owners who hadn't had a lot of experience?
I would say very possibly. I'm actually a new parrot foster, and I've had other birds before, budgies and canaries, but this is the first time I've had a parrot. And there was a small warm up period where I needed to make sure that he was giving the right calls or what the calls meant. But he's just been so easy to work with. He seems very intelligent, like he wants to learn new tricks and do things.
There he is. Now he's back in scene. Yeah. He's he's very interested in everything that's going on. What I can see some wooden toys and some shreddable toys in his house. You mentioned the mirror and that it has not yet become an obsession. And we mention obsession and mirrors because it's really important with companion birds to not let them get hormonal in terms of breeding hormones, because it can be a very frustrating experience. It can actually have a lot of health issues for them. But what sorts of toys does he like?
So we're kind of getting acquainted with that right now. Not necessarily a toy, but he loves his cuddle bone, so he'll go after that. And then this kind of treehouse thing that you can see over in the camera view. He's also really begun to like to shred paper.
So he likes to shred things. What are you luring him back, by the way? What is that? I had expected to see a millet stick, but it looks like a small nut or maybe a pine nut.
Yeah, it's just a sunflower seeds. He goes absolutely nuts over him, and I'm not sure if we can get him to come up to his perch and wave, but he does do a trick. He likes to wave.
He looks like he would go over to his perch for that sunflower seed.
He definitely will. I just want to get my hand out of the way here so we can see him.
Yeah. Well, he's disappeared again. Fans of H.G. Wells might enjoy The Invisible Parrot, but his tail is so pretty, just all the colors and stuff. We mentioned conures can get kind of loud, and even the small conures can. Does he tend to be loud, or is he only certain times of day, or what's his noise profile?
So he has definitely quieted down over the months that I have had him. During the first month, he was pretty loud, and he wanted to make sure that his humans were around. Now he's not so loud. He will call out in the morning if he doesn't see you by a certain time. And then there's a raven or a crow that comes to the window. He'll put out his warning sign or his warning call, of course, since that's a predator to them in the wild. So, and he usually calms down pretty quickly after either the raven leaves or, if you're in the room and you're sitting there and telling him it's okay. Occasionally he'll screech out, but he's gotten really quieter over the last couple months.
So mostly it's mornings and warning calls.
Yes.
And you
said a little chattering too.
Yeah. the chattering doesn't tend to be loud, right? I mean, that's just normal
No.
stuff. Can we try to bring him back to his perch again? And don't worry about your hand being in the way of the camera, because that's only momentary. But if it gets him into view, yeah, that's great. It's just, you're such a handsome guy. We like seeing you. And
He is such a sweetie.
he is like, you know, if I leave the perch, she's going to lure me back with a seed. I can totally see that.
Right.
So you mentioned that he is somewhat flighted, and that almost sounds like a little bit pregnant. You know what I mean? Is it that his wings are clipped, but he has some ability to fly, or that he just doesn't fly for a long ways, or?
Yes, so his wings are clipped, and we just had it done a couple weeks ago or so with that. I wanted to have him, or we wanted to make sure he had the option where he could have some type of flight in case he needed to get up or get away, because he does have a foster sister that is a 12-pound Chihuahua, Dotson.
Right, right.
Luckily, the Dotson and him get along great. She has no care in the world about him until he drops a piece of food. And then she's all over that food and goes back to her bed. He really enjoys watching the dog, but we did want to have him have that flight just in case he needed to get up and get away.
That makes sense. I've got two more questions before we come to the end. And again, you know, at that point, just any additional information you want to share will be great. One is, does he step up? I didn't quite remember if you had mentioned that. And the other is, how old is he?
So
I think you said about 10.
Yeah, about 11 years old or so. And in his species will normally live to be about 20 to 30 years old. So he's still a relatively young bird. And, you know, he acts spry as everything. As you can see, he's all over. And I'm sorry, what was the other question?
The other was, does he step up?
So his surrender apparently taught him how to step up onto a chopstick. During the first month that I had him, he was stepping up on my hand, he was stepping up onto my hand in order to get the treat, and then he would quickly go back over to his perch. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to recreate that, but we have been trying, and we just started implementing clicker training.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Arcus.
Thank you.
And yeah, hopefully someone is watching and going, boy, he is really a cute little bundle of energy, and we would love to see him. We're going to move to a different set of birds who are with us on video. And this is a pair of goffins Peaches. Cindy, are you with us? Can I hear you?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, so I'm guessing that this is Daisy, who really gets along well with Peaches, with people, who is reaching for the camera. Tell us a little about Daisy and Peaches and who we're seeing.
Okay.
Let's start with how they came to Mickaboo.
Okay. So Daisy and Peaches are a pair of goffins cockatoos. And they came to Mickaboo. They were surrendered because they weren't being well taken care of. So one of the family members surrendered them, and they were being fed seed. They were allowed to chew on the ceiling and nest and things like that. And so they were surrendered to Mickaboo. They're both about 20 years old. So they've lived together, and these species live to be about 40. We believe Daisy's a female. But they haven't been sexed, so we don't know for sure. And Daisy is what is the bird that's being shown right now. She's pretty tame and social, and she likes hanging out with people.
Got it. And so she interacts well with people, and that's Daisy again. And I think it's worth noting, if I remember correctly, they were surrendered, and the neglect came from the fact that their owner just became very, very elderly and unable to really care for them.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So that's a big adjustment for birds who've been with someone for a long time. So we can see that Daisy will step up on a stick or a perch and is very happy to shoulder surf. And certainly likes interacting with people. Tell us a little about Peaches. I can
Okay,
see
Peaches.
cockatoos in this picture.
Yeah,
So.
both of them here, and we'll see Peaches in a few minutes here. You know, we're seeing both Peaches and Daisy here. Peaches, so Daisy prefers men, and Peaches actually prefers women. Peaches is a little more, and you'll see in a few minutes when we get to him, that he is a little more scared of people. He's a little more shy of people, although he's not shy of other birds.
Hey, Cindy, I want to interrupt you for a moment, just because of the spray, and a lot of pet owners, like cats, you know, use a spray bottle to discipline them, whereas parrots, the spray is just a shower. It's really, really good for them, especially for birds that produce a lot of dander. So that was a happy little shower. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, right. And actually, Peaches loves to be sprayed. That's his shower. And Daisy loves to go in the shower, but she also loves to be sprayed as well. Cockatoos, I mean, my experience with them, my own, that I have adopted, he loves showers too. They just love showers. I mean, Peaches and Daisy love showers too. And like I said, Daisy will even go in the shower. And there's Daisy again.
Right, okay. And so you were saying Peaches is more shy with people.
Right. And again, we'll see Peaches hopefully in a second here. This is still Daisy. And as you see, Daisy's a little more interactive. And for goffins, I mean, these are actually an amazing pair of goffins. For people who don't know that much about goffins, a lot of the goffins that we get, and goffins in general, and what my vet has told me, it's really hard to keep a goffin feathered. They tend to pluck, especially when they're unhappy or just for, you know, they have issues, they're neglected, things like that. So a lot of them are, they're kind of known to be pluckers. And so the fact that, you know, both Peaches and Daisy, you'll see Daisy there, she's got a little bit of plucking going on in the front, but to be as feathered as they are is really great for these birds.
So do these two share a cage, and would we consider them a bonded pair and recommend that they stay together? Clearly they've been together for a long time.
So they have been together, but at this point we are recommending that they be adopted out separately because recently Peaches has been aggressive towards Daisy. So we are recommending that they actually be separated, and they're going to be in two different cages at this point.
Got it. Now this is still Daisy.
Now, the cage size, yeah, the cage size that for the cockatoos as well is 32 inches wide, about 23 inches deep, and again 44 inches high. So they're in a similar cage size to what Sebastian and Jellybean were in.
Got it. Got it. And that actually wouldn't be a bad size cage for them individually. Now, is this Peaches?
Yeah, so this is Peaches, and you'll see that Peaches will come over, he'll get a nut, but then he'll kind of keep his distance.
Right. Yeah, I see that the nut was placed on the top of the cage so that he doesn't have to take it from a hand. And he's thinking about it. He's considering it. But clearly that took.
And he'll come over and he'll hang out, you know, and so he likes to. One of the things Peaches loves to, like I said, he likes showers. He also loves to chew on wood. So he likes to chew on wood, and he likes to just, you know, kind of have his little distance, although he kind of watches everything that goes on. And he's just a little bigger than Daisy. He's called Peaches because he has very peachy cheeks.
Right. And he looks like he's pretty much in full feather.
Yes, he is.
And you said that he has, although he's shy around people in general, he has a bit of a preference, or a strong preference, for women. He's more comfortable with them.
He has a bit of a preference for women, yeah.
Got it. And
they also both like a swing toy, you know, in terms of toys that they like to play with, as well as, you know, like I mentioned, chewing on his wood toys. Got it.
Got it. And what do they eat?
So they are currently eating Supreme pellets and veggies, and I've got written down here that they also are eating. they eat fresh plant cuttings that are verified safe for parrots. And that's really important because we do not recommend generally taking plant cuttings from your garden and giving them to the birds. Because you have to be really, really careful on making sure that what you have is safe and not sprayed and et cetera, et cetera.
Right, and not toxic to birds. And the little plug, but the Mickaboo website has got a lot of information in the resources section about foods that are safe and foods that are toxic for birds. So what's a typical day like with these two? I want to mention, because it comes through in the way that the questions are being answered, that you're not fostering, right, these birds. They're being fostered actually by a member of the family, which is really helpful. Mickaboo just we're so full in terms of fosters, and that's why you're saying, well, I think they eat this or that. But have we seen any change in Peach's comfort level with people since he's been in this?
Well, we've seen changes we've seen changes for both of them actually in the time that they have been surrendered. They've gotten more comfortable with people. They've definitely, I think over time, I mean, they're both very trainable. Peaches is going to take a little more time, but I think, given the time, they're definitely, just even the few months that they've been fostered, they've come out of their shell more, that they've just had more attention.
That's awesome. He got up his courage for another nut. What kind of feedback have we gotten about how loud these guys are? Because cockatoos, like conures, can be pretty loud birds.
Yeah, so goffins are, again, cockatoos can be very loud. And I don't know, probably they're not going to be loud at night again. And they have their times that they're loud and times that they're not loud. They are not, and there they both are in the video there. There's Daisy and there's Peaches. And they definitely can get loud. I do not recommend them for apartments, and I do not recommend these two, either one of them right now, for children either.
That makes a lot of sense. You're familiar, you have a lot of experience with goffins. So, people think of cockatoos often as like the big sulfur crests or tritons, the really, really quite large.
Yeah.
About how big are goffins? They're more like an African gray size?
Yeah, they're African gray size, a little bit smaller. They're about that size. They're a lot less chunky than an African gray. I actually have a gray and a goffin. So the goffins is so much lighter than the gray in terms of just, weight wise. And they are, the other thing about goffins is they're in that range. They're not the big cockatoos. They're actually one of the smaller cockatoos. But they, like other cockatoos, they love the attention. They love the head petting. They really like to be around people. They're very social, and as parrots goes, my understanding is that young cockatoos, they'll stay with their parents for a whole year, unlike some of the other parrots. And so they do get a lot of attention.
That makes a lot of sense given how social they are. Thanks for sharing that. So in our last couple of minutes, what else would you want to share with potential adopters about Daisy and about Peaches?
Let's see, I think I mentioned that they're both about 20 and they live to be 40, so they've got a good long time ahead of them. And that Peaches it would be best if Peaches was adopted in a home without other birds, because he has shown some aggressive tendencies. And there's Daisy getting her head petted, which is what goffins love. That Peaches, like I mentioned, should be adopted without other birds.
Right.
And I think, and they're both charming. I mean, they're charming, and Daisy will bite, occasionally and run after your feet. There's Peaches over on the end there, and Daisy getting her head scratched. And also Daisy loves warm water as a treat, which is sort of interesting. And Peaches watches her drink her warm water.
She likes to have tea parties. Cindy, thank you so much
There you go.
for presenting these two, and hopefully someone is watching who has a warm place in their heart and in their home for one of these goffins. So thank you. We are going to move on to an exciting foursome. This is, hi Amy, this is Abraham, Charlie, Skippy, and Marty. It sounds like they should form a band.
Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
Well, thanks. So who's who? I see the four of them.
Okay. Marty is the one in the far corner. I hope you can see, I think it's a she, so I've been calling her Abby. Gray and white. And
Okay.
she's a little nervous. She's got a little stage fright today, she was telling me, but I think she's going to be okay. The one closest to you in the corner with the yellow crest and the paler orange cheek is Skippy. Charlie is the gray-backed one climbing the side of the cage to get to the millet. And Marty is the one who's eating the millet and sitting on the perch.
Got it. Got it. So it was Abraham who you have renamed.
Yes, simply because the consensus seems to be that Abraham may actually be a female.
Right.
And I have a good friend in New York who has a son named Abraham, and they call him Abby. So I figured that was probably accepted.
Nice. Nice. And I want to remind viewers that they can ask questions about these cockatiels in the Q&A, and we'll get to them. So do we know how old they are, and how did they come to Mickaboo?
I've only had them for about 5 weeks. They're almost done with their quarantine. There was a cockatiel aviary rescue that we did that was in San Jose about 5 weeks ago. A person had an aviary with 11 cockatiels, excuse me if I said cockatoos, I meant cockatiels. He had 11 cockatiels in an outside aviary. It was when we were in the midst of that quite extreme heat wave.
Yep.
And several of us went over there. I just went over because it was not far from my house and I had room to take a few birds. So I ended up coming home with these 4. We don't know if they were bonded or anything. It was so hot. We were trying to figure out who might be bonded, who might, be attached to somebody. And it really wasn't obvious. So we just tried to grab the birds as fast as we can and spritz them down. And I got 2 kennels with 2 birds each and put them in my car and turned on the air conditioning. So these are the 4 that I happened to come home with. They all get along very well. In the beginning, it looked like Abby and Marty, the yellow one who was eating the millet, might be kind of bonded, and Skippy and Charlie might be kind of bonded, but I don't know now. I think they all just kind of get along well together.
Now, like budgies, we adopt cockatiels out in pairs or to families or people who have an existing, already have one of the species because they're super social and they really need
Yes,
of their own kind.
right.
So tell us, how do they interact with people? They were aviary birds. Often that means birds that are a little shy of people.
Right. They were aviary birds, I think, for at least 8 years, but I don't know if these are actually that old. And I don't know the whole background story about the aviary, why these people had to get rid of the birds or give up the birds. But I've been working with them. I did try to separate Abby at one time and put her in another cage just 5 feet from the cage she's in now, thinking that she might become more friendlier to a human if she was by herself. Well, it didn't work. She was so unhappy being away from her bird friends that within 24 hours, I put her back in, and you should have heard the chirping in delight when she was back in with her friends. Everybody was so happy. So, so that experiment didn't work. So lately,
Well, Abby is the one without yellow, right? The gray and white.
Correct. The little gray one who's sitting in the far corner over there. Yeah.
What is her usual temperament? You mentioned her having a little bit of stage fright, and one of our viewers was asking what she's really like.
She's a little more nervous than the others. In the very beginning, she would just pace at the bottom of the cage, just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, walking on the floor of the cage next to the side. She's calmed down a lot from that, but when she gets nervous, that seems to be her behavior. I think she's doing pretty well now. She's sitting in the corner and her little crest is fairly relaxed. She's a little more shy. Charlie seems to be a little bit braver. Charlie would be the one facing to the left, watching Marty eat the millet.
He's the one whose crest is up.
Yes. I've been trying to just put my hand in and just leave my hand in so they know that it's, you know, nothing scary. And they don't freak out over me. They do, you know, sometimes they'll fly a little and they may land on my arm and then jump off, but they kind of realize I think it's not going to kill them if that happens.
Right.
They do like millet. I don't think they got millet in their aviary, so I'm just now trying to give it to them as a treat. I was worried more about getting them converted from sheep bird seed to the nutrient cake, and they are now completely converted. So I've been giving the millet as a treat, and you can see Marty has definitely claimed that one as his own and is going after it. There is
Marty says life is good with millet springs. Yeah.
Life is good with millet. Let me just put this one on their little corner here, and they'll fly for a minute, but I think they'll come back and eat. So I think that eventually they will, oops, come here. Skippy, you knocked that on the ground here. There you go. Okay.
There we go. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Look, Charlie who came first.
Charlie. Yeah, Charlie found it. Okay. Now you'll see Skippy is thinking, how am I going to get around him and get some? But Abby, I don't know if you can
see. Slowest probably.
Abby's kind of pacing on the bottom of the cage.
Right.
So I think that eventually it will not be at all hard to tame them, if you will. I don't like that word, but you know what I'm talking about. To come sit on your hand if you have millet, to use it as a training tool.
Right.
I think they will. They're really very sweet birds. I had never had cockatiels before, and I'm really very, very fond of them.
Boy, it didn't take Abby long to recover from the scare of the big hand coming in and go up.
Right.
So yeah, they're all doing really, really well. That's wonderful to see.
Yeah, I think they are. They seem healthy. When I first got them, Marty, the yellow one, would kind of open her beak and breathe out, and it was kind of raspy. And I was a little worried about her. But I've been spritzing them all with saline water, and that seems to have helped a lot. And I very rarely see that anymore. So, so I think whatever that was, maybe she had some dust in her nostrils or her sinuses, and you know, and that cleared eventually. So the place where they were was quite a dusty, unshaded environment, and I don't think they got any fresh greens or fresh fruit or anything like that. So I think they're doing pretty well here. They seem pretty happy.
That's great. We have another question about Abby, and that is, you know, it looks like she gets along pretty well with other birds. How would you say she does with other birds? These people have a pretty timid young lady cockatiel and are thinking and would like to get her their teal a friend.
She, you know, it's hard to tell. She gets along fine with the others. You know, once in a long while, one of the others will, you know, just make a little, not even a nip, but a little bit of a, you know, get away from me kind of bite. Not that it's a bite, but I think you know what I mean. I do not see Abby doing that. If I had to guess or speculate, I would say she's more passive than the others.
Right. Sounds like it
might be a very good companion for another bird who's kind of shy.
It sounds that way. Now, we've just been talking about conures and cockatoos, who are known for being quite loud. Cockatiels are pretty quiet. They kind of murmur. They can have, tell me a little bit about their noise level.
They're, I would not call them noisy birds, definitely compared to some of the other birds that I have fostered. They have when they are loud, it's a very pleasant kind of chirp or call. So I can't imagine them being disturbing to anybody. Sometimes in the morning, if I have not put the blinds down in the room they're in, they wake up early and then I hear them, you know, when I get up, and it's just a very pleasant sound. And they do chirp to each other. They talk to each other. In the evenings, 2 or 3 times, they're in a quarantine room, which is right next to our little kitchen eating area. And 2 or 3 times, my husband and I have been eating dinner, and all of a sudden, two of them I think it is, will start singing the most beautiful songs. And I've kind of tiptoed in to try to see which birds it is. And I think it's Skippy and Charlie, but I'm not positive because of course, you know, when you catch them doing something you really want to watch, they stop.
Right, of course.
But it was such a pretty sound. My husband and I both just stopped eating and looked at each other like, wow, you know, what is that?
We are so fortunate to be in their presence. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in our last few minutes, maybe what else would you like to share or describe the kind of adopter who could be successful with these birds if someone who didn't have a lot of bird experience perhaps could do well with them?
Yes, I think they're definitely, I would say, probably much easier birds than, you know, you wouldn't want to start with a bird that could inflict a hard bite, you know, if the bird was scared or whatever, like a macaw or something. I would call these the cockatiels probably on the easier range, like a budgie. They definitely do need to be in pairs. I would not want to adopt them out singly, and I know that's against Mickaboo policy. They need to be with another cockatiel, and they seem to get along great as a foursome here. So I would say anyone who, you know, who would like to try their hands at caring for very nice birds. They're relatively neat. They're easy. Their diet is very easy. They eat the nutrient cake, and you can see they've got various vegetables, and they love their millet. They love sweet corn. So I either hang it up from the top of the cage or just put it chunks of it on the bottom of the cage, and it's always gone within a few hours. They like fresh lettuce, and they've eaten apple and other kinds of fruits too. So I think that they would make very good birds for just about anybody who wants to have two nice birds.
Thank you so much, Amy. And
thank you.
It's just great to see how well they're doing after, you know, an aviary rescue that was kind of frenetic and urgent. I remember that one.
Yes, it was a little bit. We were all pretty worried about them because, of course, we had to catch them with nets, and it was so hot the birds would fly from one side to another and then grasp hold of the side of the aviary, and you know, their wings were out. They were just panting, and we just were all very, very worried, you know, that they would overheat terribly. But they seem to have come through it, and they seem happy. So I'm very happy about that too.
Yay! Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jonathan.
And now we're going to go down another size step to meet a pair of budgies, Maclin and Maddie. And hi, Toka. This is Toka, and Shaima, I'm guessing, is there somewhere as well. Who is it that we're seeing on top of the cage in the foreground?
We've got, that's over here is Maclin. Hi, Maclin. Right here.
And so that answers the question. Maclin steps up for millet.
Yes, he does. He does without millet too sometimes. It depends on his mood. Can't have everything perfect all the time, so it depends on his mood.
Yeah, what I'm willing to do for millet or not for millet depends on my mood too. I'll tell you that. I want to remind people that they can ask questions about Maclin and Maddie in chat, and we'll try to get to them. So that was Maclin, and Maddie is back a little bit farther on the house. And there you go.
Come on. Yeah. Ooh.
Everything just went dark for a moment. That's really odd.
Yeah.
And Shaina, if you're there and could maybe, the video went dark a couple of times. I'm wondering if it's just different light coming in through the shade. Anyway, let's start with some budgie basics. What do they eat? They're obviously both willing to step up, which is really neat. So what are they eating?
So as for their diet, they're on a seeded diet currently. We're trying to convert them to pellets. It's going really well. They're maintaining a good weight, and they're going really well with the pellets. We mix the pellets with some water to make it softer and easier for them to eat, and they're content with that. Just this morning, they finished all their pellet mush stuff, which is really good. Good job, babies. Yeah.
You mentioned something that I want to just highlight for viewers. You mentioned that they're maintaining their weight, and that it's really, really incredibly useful to weigh birds regularly. That's one of the clearest signs of how they're doing health-wise. So it's great that you guys are doing that. They're in a pretty large cage. And do they share that cage together?
Yes, they do. They're really good together. We definitely consider them a bonded pair. They do get comfort from being around each other. And if they can't see each other, sometimes they will scream for each other just to have that sense of safety. So yes, they do.
And when a budgie screams, I'll point out that's a very different thing than a cockatoo screaming. And
yes, it is. I've never personally experienced a cockatoo scream, and I am thankful for that. They can be a bit loud for budgies compared to other budgies I've heard. They can be a bit loud, but they're manageable.
Right. What kinds of toys do they like? I see some climbing things in their cage, and what
Yeah,
sorts
so
of toys?
their favorite toys are more foraging toys. You can see they like millet a lot and they are very food motivated. So their favorite kind of toys would definitely be foraging toys. We have a little toy in their cage where you can stick some millet inside and they'll kind of break apart the toy just to get some millet.
And how would you describe, their personalities? In what ways are they different? What makes them each? What makes Maclin Maclin and Maddie Maddie?
Well, Madden over here, right here, the one with the black stripes. Madden, she's very outgoing. I'd say as, those people that are like very out there and you can tell when they're in the room. He's that kind of bird. He likes to make himself known. If we're ignoring him, sometimes he'll kind of scream just to not to get attention, just to tell everyone that, hey, I'm here, And then we have Maclin over here. He's more shy. He when I was training them to step up, he was the last kind of to pick it up, and he'll kind of when Madden gets a reward for doing something, Maclin will kind of come and grab it, not just to have some kind of reward. So he's that kind of bird, kind of shy and corner bird.
Little shyer, but definitely training well, and clearly you're doing a really nice job training them, Toka.
Thank you.
This is very cool. So one Maclin is a little shyer, although it was interesting because he was the one on the front of the house to start, so he's not super shy.
Yes.
Do you know how they came to Mickaboo?
Yes, they were part of our more recent big aviary rescue. They were stuck in an aviary with about 8 other birds. To my knowledge, 5 of them were female, 5 of them were male. They were one of the male ones. They weren't in the best conditions, so our wonderful volunteers here at Mickaboo rescued them from their bad situation and got them to some foster homes.
So again, just opportunity to point out based on what you've said, and we saw it with the cockatiels, aviary birds are often very shy with people. And so the fact that these two are now hand tame and doing so well is really a testament to the work that you and your mom have done. Really nice stuff. We have people asking, at what times of the day are they typically more boisterous, more active, singing, noisy? Budgies tend to sort of burble,
They are. I'll notice that especially in the morning and at night, they'll start in the morning just to get our attention, as I said, make themselves known, make sure that, we're here. And then at night, right as like the sun is starting to set, they'll just chirp like, okay, I'm gonna sleep now, but you still want to know I'm here.
So it sounds like they like to have ambient attention. They like to know that you're there and that you know that they're there. Do they it looks like they enjoy having individual attention as well, and direct attention like this, especially when there's millet.
Yes, they do. They do really love millet, and for one-on-one attention, they do like it. But there's a certain limit, like you can tell by their body language, especially at the beginning, they like it a lot, but then they're like kind of fluffing up, starting to ignore the millet, and then they don't want that kind of attention anymore. They're just fine chilling out.
Again, a wonderful point that you bring up about watching their body language, not only for these two, but for parrots in general. It's just the best way that we can tell what they're needing and how comfortable they are in a situation. I really appreciate you pointing that out because it's critical, and it's part of, I would be willing to bet it's part of the reason that you've been successful in training them the way that you have, because you're paying attention to that. So that's really, really cool. Another question coming in. Do you notice them looking at you very intently when you talk to them up close at the cage? Do you think that they might learn a few words eventually?
We have noticed that they are picking up snippets of words we say. Especially in the morning, I'm always like, hi, babies. And I notice, especially sometimes when they're chirping to each other, you can hear a snippet of like a hi or something. It's very cute. So they will talk, and when we talk to them, they do look at us like they're having a conversation. It's honestly really cool. It's like having a conversation with the birds. Very nice.
I'm personally just a big fan of what amazing learners parrots can be. And you look at budgies and they're so small, but they are really, really avid learners and can be really good talkers. And for a pair of aviary birds, to be doing this well and possibly picking up words, it's just really, really cool. Have they been around other birds or other pets?
They have been around other birds. As I said, they came from an aviary with about 8 other birds.
Right.
They lived with 5 of them at another foster, and then they separated. They took really well to the separation. We didn't notice any behavioral changes, so they're good on that. As for pets, they haven't been around pets. I don't know how they would react, given that they are pretty scared of new things. I would say that they wouldn't do well with pets. Like if you have a dog or maybe a cat, we definitely don't recommend here at Mickaboo. We don't recommend interaction with those kind of pets. But I definitely don't think they do well in a house with them, just in general. So if you have a dog, maybe don't go for these kind of birds.
Right, or introductions very slowly and stuff. And so they've been around. Do you have any younger brothers or sisters? Have they been around small kids?
Yes, they have. I have a younger brother who's 7 and a younger sister who's 10. They're really good with kids. I think it's because to them kids are smaller, so they're not as threatening as like my mom or my dad. So it's not as threatening to them. So they actually do really well with kids.
That's really neat. Really, really neat. So thank you so much for sharing these guys. They're what a cute pair of budgies, and they're doing so well. It's a pleasure to see. These guys are looking for their forever home, and they would add some sweet music to somebody's house. Thank you so much. We're going to stay on for a little bit of stay open for questions and answers if people have them. And so if you have them, please ask. Otherwise, I will say thank you for attending Mickaboo's August Virtual Adoption Fair. And if you have ideas or comments on how we can improve for next time, please fill out the event survey. You'll get a link to it when you exit, because we're always interested in how we can improve. Or send us an email. We have a question. How old are the budgies? So, Toka, if you can unmute and tell us. Oh, and this is the July Virtual Adoption Fair. Yes, not August. I'm ahead of myself. Toka, can you unmute and let us know how old the budgies are, if we know?
Yes, so they're around the ages of 1 and 2. We're not completely sure, but they're pretty young. Okay,
perfect. Thank you. And budgies can live 18, 20 years or longer. So these are just youngsters. So this was our July Virtual Adoption Fair. Our August fair will be August 29th. And all of these birds are looking for their forever homes, and there are many, many more Mickaboo birds who need to find their forever homes. So if you fell in love with one of these birds, please contact us. And if nobody here seemed like quite the right bird, please take a look at the website, mickaboo.org. And remember, please, we are a fully donation-funded nonprofit, and you can support the work of Parrot Rescue, again, through the website, mickaboo.org/donate, or paypal.me/Mickaboo. So we'll be continuing to do these virtual adoption fairs regularly. As I said, the one in August is scheduled for August 29th. And again, our website will have information about that and other events that we're hosting. I'd like to say huge thank you to all of the volunteers who made this possible, to the foster parents who were brave enough to be on video, and their birds for being brave enough to be on video, and for all the volunteers who keep the organization running and who provided tech support to keep this event happening and help it be a great event for all of you. Thank you very much, and we'll see you perhaps next month or through filling out an application. We'll see you soon. Thanks, bye.